Welcome to the Workplace Minute, powered by H3HR Advisors and sponsored by WorkHuman. Thanks for joining me for a quick update on what's important in the world of work. My name is Steve Boese. Today in the Workplace Minute, I want to talk about something that's quickly moving from abstract debate into the lived reality for maybe millions of professional workers. I'm talking about AI-driven job disruption and who's actually responsible when these cuts come. Let's break it down. Last week, Block, the fintech firm led by Jack Dorsey, announced plans to reduce its workforce by roughly 40%. 40%! And the explanation? AI and automation. The signal here is unmistakable. AI is no longer just a tool for productivity experiments or pilot projects in HR or in the supply chain. It's now being explicitly cited as the driver for large-scale white-collar workforce reductions. And this isn't an isolated comment from just one CEO. Jamie Dimon from JPMorgan Chase has warned that AI will significantly reshape banking jobs. Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, has predicted that AI could eliminate a substantial percentage of entry-level white-collar roles. And Andy Jassy from Amazon has publicly stated that corporate workforces will have to shrink as generative AI becomes embedded in operations. And this drumbeat from the CEO class continues to get louder. For years, we told ourselves that automation would primarily impact frontline or routine labor, manufacturing, retail, logistics, maybe in the call centers. But AI is now squarely aimed at professional, technical, and cognitive work. So for fields like software development, finance, accounting, marketing, legal, parts of HR, AI is coming fast. The uncomfortable reality is this. The disruption is coming for the people who believe they would always be safe, and pretty much have been through previous technology revolutions. AI seems to be changing that script. For organizations, this presents a strategic inflection point. If AI can replace meaningful portions of professional work, then workforce planning cannot remain reactive. HR leaders must push for more rigorous scenario modeling. Which roles are likely to shrink? Which will expand? What new skills will be required? If a substantial portion of a job can be automated, are we simply going to have lots of agent managers on staff? And what is the half-life of today's high-paying knowledge jobs? For educators, the implications are equally stark. Universities are still graduating thousands of students every year into fields where entry-level tasks are precisely the kinds of structured cognitive activities that AI now performs at near zero marginal cost. If first-year analysts, junior coders, staff accountants, or marketing associates can be fully or partially automated, how does early career development even function? How do young professionals build experience if the apprenticeship layer is hollowed out? Should we be telling our high school kids to think about the trades as the most secure long-term career path? And for policymakers, these questions become systemic. What happens to labor markets if professional wage compression accelerates? What happens to tax bases if high-skilled employment becomes structurally smaller? Are we prepared for that transition? And who will be the consumers for all these goods and services that AI produces if millions of these consumers become unemployed? But we need to talk about something else, perhaps something even more uncomfortable. AI is quickly becoming the most convenient justification for layoffs in corporate history. Let's be clear, some workforce reductions will absolutely be driven by legitimate AI productivity gains. That's real. But we should also be honest about these incentives. When executives face slowing growth, margin pressures, a sluggish stock price, or strategic missteps, citing AI transformation or automation provides a modern, forward-looking narrative for cuts that may have been coming anyway. AI is offering cover to CEOs. It reframes layoffs as innovation. It converts cost reduction into visionary leadership. It makes workforce contraction sound inevitable rather than optional. And note, it's always optional. And that is where HR leaders must be vigilant. If AI is truly driving change, organizations owe employees transparency, reskilling pathways, and credible transition support. If it's simply a narrative shield, then leaders are eroding trust at precisely the moment when trust is the most fragile. And there's another dimension we can't ignore, these new entrants into the workforce. Imagine graduating this spring with a degree in computer science, finance, accounting, marketing, only to discover that the entry-level rung of the ladder's partially disappeared. if the first 2 to 3 years of professional skill building, that if they've always depended on repetition, structured analysis, researching, drafting, modeling, debugging, reviewing, AI now performs many of those tasks with startling competence across myriad domains. If companies shrink entry-level hiring because AI increases individual productivity, we risk creating a generational bottleneck with fewer early career opportunities, slower wealth accumulation, delayed home ownership, deferred family formation, and the ripple effects extend well beyond corporate balance sheets and into our broader economy and culture. This is not just a workforce issue. It's an economic architecture issue. Let me wrap up this show by circling back to Block and their 40% cut. If a CEO comes before the market and says AI and automation are forcing a 40% reduction in force, we have to ask a fundamental governance question. Where was the foresight? Generative AI didn't materialize overnight. The signals have been visible for years. ChatGPT launched in November of 2022. Boards have been briefed, executives have spoken on panels, strategy decks have been filled with references to AI transformation. If AI is now so powerful that it requires eliminating nearly half of a workforce, then leadership had both the responsibility and the runway to anticipate it. Workforce planning is not a quarterly exercise. It is a core and continuous executive obligation. If a CEO claims that external technological forces are so overwhelming that drastic layoffs are unavoidable, then accountability cannot stop at the employee level. It must rest at the top. Because either the disruption was foreseeable, in which case leaders should have gradually adjusted hiring, began retraining workers, and redesigned roles over the past 3 to 4 years, or if it was not foreseeable, which raises an entirely different concern about their strategic competence. You can't simultaneously claim visionary leadership around AI and also plead inevitability when the consequences arrive. If AI truly forced a 40% workforce reduction, then the failure was not technological, it was managerial. And in that case, responsibility does not belong solely with the displaced employees. It belongs in the C-suite and potentially in the boardroom. I will say it more plainly. The CEO of Block should voluntarily exit the company along with the workers he's letting go, or be fired by the board if he won't resign. This is the moment where HR leaders, educators, and policymakers must move beyond abstract discussions of AI's potential and confront the structural implications head on. The choices made in the next 3 to 5 years will determine whether AI becomes a productivity multiplier that elevates human work or simply a blunt instrument that accelerates inequality and erodes trust. The future of professional work is not predetermined. It will be shaped by our decisions. And leadership means owning both the upside and the consequences. All right, that's it for today's Workplace Minute. Thanks so much for listening, and a big thank you to WorkHuman for supporting the Workplace Minute. If this episode made you think about how you and your organization are making these hard choices around AI technology, please share it with a colleague. I'm Steve Boese, and this has been the Workplace Minute from H3 HR Advisors.